All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being on this call this afternoon or early evening. It was really designed to introduce Melissa Temple-Agosta, my business partner and your international director with Canaway. She is a skincare aficionado extraordinaire and everything else that you can think of. And we're so honored to have her here. This call was designed because there's quite a few folks in the UK, Melissa, that are incorporating CBD facials and utilizing CBD in their spas. And so they had some great questions. And I thought, how great would it be to have our resident expert in skincare do this call so that we'll have it and people can really think about what a wonderful product line that we have and all the different applications. So without further ado, I am turning this call over to Melissa Temple-Agosta. Thank you so much. It's all yours.
Thanks, Valerie. It's my pleasure to meet you all, and I'm sorry that it has to be over Zoom and not in person because I'd love to come see you across the pond, as we say. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background. I've been doing some digging on some techniques because Valerie and I have been speaking since she was over there with you all about some topics that interest you and some things that you need to know in order to add value to what you're doing in the spa. So I can tell you what I know and give you a little information, and let's make it interactive. If you have a question that you have on your mind that relates to your business in the spa and skincare world, then let's do that. I know you're already doing it and you're already incorporating the Cannabis Beauty Define and the Pure Gold Liquid into your treatments, which is fantastic. I have a couple of people doing that here in the US too, and I've learned a little bit about it from them and have had discussions with other people in the industry. I have spoken to our formulator, Dr. Janelle Kim, about some of the activity of our ingredients with some treatment spas. So that will be interesting for you. I think that's one of the main messages. And then you can tell me if there's something I'm missing, but I was at L'Oreal for over 20 years, almost 25 years, and I did a lot with the skincare industry in terms of educating people and very technical skin info, scientific documents, working on product formulation, and then turning that into the message for the public. So it's really something that's close to my heart. It's something I'm really excited to always talk about. So I'm happy to share some info with you. I can share this presentation and this slide with you afterward and some other things that we put together, and we'll work on a presentation that's very specific to your industry as well. Okay? Sound like a deal?
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so first of all, I just put this diagram of the skin up here, and it's a different kind of diagram than you normally see. I, of course, have diagrams of the skin that show all of the layers of the skin and the cells and what happens in the dermis and the epidermis, etc. But when you're talking about why does CBD and other cannabinoids in hemp activate the skin in a very particular way, that is the conversation here, because we know that we have this endocannabinoid system running throughout our bodies. It appears in all of our major organs, and that is what CBD and other cannabinoids trigger. That's why it works. So when you think about the skin, the skin is filled with many microorgans. Your skin cells, your oil gland, your hair follicle, the Langerhans cells that give immunity to the skin, and all of the other elements of the skin are like mini organs within the skin, and they have their own endocannabinoid receptor sites. So that's the cool thing. They have the CB1 and CB2 receptor sites depending on the part of the skin that we're talking about. And so when you apply CBD to the skin, and I don't even want to just say CBD because it's not about CBD, it's about all of the cannabinoids, and it is CBD, but it's everything that the plant gives us. The skincare products have many cannabinoids in them that activate this endocannabinoid system and have a direct effect on the functioning of the skin. Number one, inflammation. So that's why you see in this diagram at the top, it talks about the proliferation of cells and how they manage to, you know, make new cells every day, every month, depending on the renewal cycle. And you see down there, it's also about reducing inflammation. A lot of the problems that we deal with when it comes to skin and the things that people come to you for are all caused by inflammation and the inflammatory response. Maybe it's sensitivity, maybe it's acne, maybe it's you know, atopic cells that are creating things on the surface of the skin, like discolorations or lesions or whatever. I don't want to use, you know, disease terms as much as possible here, but you know what inflammation does. It causes problems and blockages and issues within the skin that we want to avoid. So when you're putting CBD products from hemp on the skin, it is helping to alleviate that inflammation. And it's also triggering the cannabinoid receptor sites in the skin so that they can function the way that they're supposed to. Your skin is supposed to renew itself. Your skin is supposed to calm itself down when it has an aggressor that is introduced, whether internally or externally. So I found it fascinating with this diagram because it shows how the receptor sites go in and focus on certain parts of the skin. You see there the sebaceous gland, the new skin cells that are being born on the basal cell layer right here of the epidermis. You see the CB1 and CB2 receptors are there. You see here with the immune Langerhans cells, the CB receptors are there. So when you apply these products to your skin, you are saying to those immune cells, activate, do what you're supposed to do, protect the skin, guard it against aging, guard it against the environment. When you apply the skincare to the skin and it absorbs and affects these brand new baby cells that are being produced slower as we age, but they're still being produced in the CB1 and CB2 receptors there are enabling that process to function the way it should. You should have a new skin every 30 days at the most. But we know as you age, that becomes sluggish, and it can take months sometimes for a new skin cell to show itself. And looking even deeper at the sweat glands, the sensory nerves, sometimes the skin is painful. Well, there's CB receptors, even there, that can calm down that reaction and say, okay, skin, it's okay. We see your alarm. We're going to calm it down. We're going to do something to kind of come to the rescue. The fact that it's in the hair follicle and the sebaceous gland is key for issues that when you have clogged pores and congested skin and issues that stem from the oil gland and the hair follicle. We know that that's the pathway for oil and water to come up to the surface of the skin, which nourishes the skin and really creates this acid mantle that we have on the surface. It's very important for that to be in balance. And, you know, we talk about taking hemp oil supplements, it's all about balancing, right? It's all about homeostasis. So the skin, being the largest organ of the body, deserves that homeostasis too. It's the outermost reflection of what's going on inside our bodies, right? So I just wanted to share this diagram with you just for a little bit of a different view on the skin than maybe we've all traditionally talked about in our industries of skin and products and procedures. Now, speaking to the products in particular, when you, so from Dr. Janelle Kim, I'll just tell you what I asked her was specifically when you use Cannabis Beauty Defined, which has CBD hemp oil and Bibong herbs, the Bibong herbal blend, that's already a fantastic delivery system. When you have Bibong with CBD, it allows it to be more bioavailable and to penetrate better. That's the purpose of Bibong. It creates its own little delivery system. We don't need nano capsules and micro delivery systems and all of that because the Bibong does that in a natural herbal way that has been tested for, you know, so many years with the Korean royal family. So what Janelle said is that when you use a treatment as well, like let's talk microneedling, as that's what you want, one of the treatments you're doing. When you microneedle the skin and then apply the Cannabis Beauty Define, let's say the serums, the moisturizer, whatever you're following with, it is going to turn that product into a super treatment because it's already superior absorption. And now, because of microneedling, she's saying that with the delivery system of the Bibong and the CBD, that the properties of each ingredient are absorbing at an even higher rate than possible without microneedling. And the same would probably apply to microdermabrasion and other types of exfoliating treatments, peels, and other things that you would do, lasers and such, whatever you're doing, because it's removing the barriers, as you know, to penetration. It's removing layers of skin, or it's opening up pathways for those ingredients to go deeper into the skin surface layer than a person at home could do really on their own. All we can do at home is physically exfoliate, steam, mask, and try to clear the way for the treatments. And that's fantastic, because when someone comes in for a treatment, the follow-up plan, obviously, in the days and weeks following, is Cannabis Beauty Defined. Keep it going. Keep up this amazing nutrition that you're giving the skin while the pathway's open. Some estheticians say that pathway stays open for days after the treatment, depending on what that treatment might be. Maybe that's the case for microneedling, or maybe it's just instantaneous in terms of its, effects on the skin. So tell me what questions you have around that. I want to pause for a minute because I know this is an important subject to you all, microneedling and the absorption of CBD and Bibong. So does anyone have a question on that? Does that make sense? Does that help?
Don't forget to unmute your line because your lines are muted. Anyone have a question for Melissa?
Okay, hi. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, who's this?
I'm Bridget.
Hi, Bridget.
Nice to see you. Nice to meet you. I've heard wonderful things about you, and I feel very lucky to be sitting in here and learning all about it through you. My question, we've recently started to do microdermabrasion facials, and then we do kind of a general normal facial, and then we also do the needling facials. So I've got a question with regards to the absorption and the size of the particles. We're using the actual oil on the sort of the first level facial, which involves a cleanse, a exfoliate, the mask, and then we use the CBD oil to do a lymphatic drain massage.
Wonderful.
From if it's, I don't know what you can attribute it to necessarily, and if it's only one thing, but the anti-inflammatory aspect of it is incredible. We've got some amazing before and after photographs that we can share.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. So what I really wanted to find out though was, because oil is obviously a particle that's too big for your skin to actually absorb, how does that work in terms of the oil? Like, is it actually being absorbed if we're just using, well, from just the oil point of view, obviously the skincare particles are small enough to get through, but does us using the oil actually work in terms of absorption?
So, I mean, my opinion on that, just, researching the oil versus the oil in the skincare, at JBK, when they formulate the skincare, they take care to make sure that it will absorb, to your point. So whatever's left at the end on the skin should be the skincare, or whatever is put on directly after the treatment for the maximum absorption would be the serum, for example, and the moisturizer. However, when you're using the oil itself for your lymphatic drainage massage, it's going to have a chain reaction of events that will take place, because it's obviously working on the epidermis, right? We can't make any claims below the epidermis with that, because we just can't. That's a medical thing that would need to be claimed by a doctor. But however, because there are receptor sites in the epidermis with the living cell layer, that will have a chain reaction with what happens below, because if those cells are ignited, or those receptor sites are ignited, it will kind of communicate down to the rest of the parts of the skin that have receptor sites. So it's always nice to have both. Make sure you have a strong product like a serum, and then you have the oil. I would never just use the oil. For body massages, I totally agree with that because of the volume of area of skin that you're working with. We have a lot of people who use the pure gold oil in massage, and they add it into their carrier oil with their essential oils and whatever else they would like, and that's fine. But,
but then
great.
we definitely do use the serum and moisturizer after the oil. It's just the lymphatic drain massage that we use the gold oil for, which
wonderful.
And I mean, it would have a local effect, even if it doesn't have a general effect. But then my second question is around microneedling and what product you recommend we use from the skincare and with the microneedling. And again, it comes back to the size of the particles of the oil. So if we're using like a pen, what would you recommend? Which product would you recommend?
So with microneedling, very important serums. The serum is the key because of its thin texture and its ability to penetrate quickly. It just goes along hand in hand with the pathways that you're opening up with microneedling. That is not a normal experience for a consumer. All of the skincare products are fine and safe to use in conjunction with microneedling. Dr. Kim said, you know, if somebody is counterindicated for microneedling, this wouldn't apply to them anyway. So we're talking about people that are candidates for microneedling. You know how to rule out people who could not have microneedling. So we're not going to talk about them. It doesn't apply to them. So I think her point was just not to make a catch-all statement just because there is Bibong and CBD. If you have a good candidate for microneedling and you've decided to do it, then the whole skincare line will play nice with that technique. Yeah.
Okay. And specifically for dermapen, so if we're pushing a product into the skin, which product would you recommend? The serum again?
A dermapen?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with a dermapen, unfortunately. Tell me what that is.
So a dermapen just, it allows the needling to kind of carry the ingredient into the skin directly through the dermapen rather than rolling and then putting it on top.
It's just targeted. It's like one little area at a time. Okay, I got it. Yeah, it's also fine. I mean, serum just is so conducive to these types of procedures.
Yeah.
What was that? Oh, sorry. I think we froze.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. So, yes, the serum is always just the go-to just because of its consistency and its ability to absorb anyway. It becomes a super treatment, but also the moisturizer. Everything else, you know, we don't have a toner, and so I wanted to comment on that as well, because our old cleanser used to be a clay-based cleanser. So you had to have a toner to pick up the residue, to complete the cleansing process, very traditional, right? Or really not, because a clay cleanser is not as common as most people think. But now that the cleanser is this, I actually have it here, this liquidy consistency, it's a cleanser and toner in one now. Because what you're doing is, it's really just the foaming mechanism of the dispenser that mousses it. It's not the formula that does that. The formula is a liquid. So in terms of completing the cleansing process, it's all in one now. It's a shortcut for people so they can focus a little bit more on the exfoliation and the treatment process than ever before. It's a cool thing to be able to tell a consumer that they don't really need that as they did before. It's a modern approach to a natural skincare solution, really.
And do you know what the pH is of the cleanser?
I think it is a balanced pH from what she's told me. I will double check though for you guys. You know, in that case, that's another argument, if you will, for not needing the toner because the pH is balanced with the cleansing process anyway.
Cool. Okay, perfect. That's what I would.
Yeah, there's no acid. There's nothing that would, you know, lower or raise or make it more acid or neutral or the other end of the spectrum versus some other active, very active cleansers. So it's nice. You don't worry as much about it, but I will check that for you just to make sure. Okay, you guys? What other questions do you have on that topic of our products and the procedures? And if there's something I'm not familiar with, I will go to Dr. Kim and research that for you.
Nothing so far.
Okay.
Answered everything I have.
Okay. What about any other general topics that you guys are interested in terms of the products themselves? Are you familiar with all of the information on the products? You feel good about that? Any questions on the products themselves, you can ask.
I have a question about any contraindications. So what would you recommend what clients should we stay away from with this product, with these products?
So it's actually wonderful that we have something gentle enough that goes across the board. You know, it would be a normal kind of advisement for someone with a very active acne or rosacea or some kind of skin condition that's flaring up to be very gentle on the exfoliating. However, Dr. Kim told us about the formulation process of that exfoliator, that for a normal skin or even an oily skin that doesn't have acne, you could use this exfoliator twice a day. It's made to be used daily. It was formulated to be used daily. Now, most people will not do that. She does that because it's a super duper Korean skincare point of view. You know, there's a lot of steps. K-beauty is intense, you know, and it's a trend, but there's a system, you know, that goes along with it. We're already creating some shortcuts here with our only 5 little steps. You know, there's probably 9 steps in the traditional K-beauty routine. It's a ritual, isn't it? I mean, it really is. So it's safe enough to, let's just say that, but, you know, start slow. If you have a flare-up of something or some discomfort or redness or atopic condition, you want to advise of, you know, people love to physically scrub, and you don't have to do that. The formula does the work for you. So it's a gentle rolling. I always like to use the analogy of, think of marbles on a glass table. They just roll off the dead skin and the impurities. You don't have to force it. The formula does the work for you. So it's just as gentle. Get it on your skin, move it around. Avoid the eye area, very typical. Don't forget the throat and the décolleté area. I just use mine, so my skin feels really nice. Anyway, that's it. There really isn't anything in these steps that's going to create irritation and sensitivity. The mask is new, you know, so we're going to be getting feedback on the mask. Here in the US, we've only had it a few weeks, but I've been using the skincare line since you've launched it over there for a year, and it's fantastic. I have not heard one complaint about an irritant, and I think it's all about them using it correctly, really, and avoiding the eyes. And the serum and moisturizer, however, are safe for the eye area. That's why we don't have a specific eye product. To keep delicate eye, skin in mind. You know, it's important because the eye is an organ, and we're trying to teach people that the heat from the eye area will move any product inward directly towards your eye area. So you have to put it only on the orbital bone. I'm not telling you something you don't know, but for people who will watch this in terms of it being recorded, I just want people to know that any serum or moisturizer application should go right up to the bone, right where we start to see those expression lines and signs of aging and even our dark circles. You know, it's right up to that area. And then the product will penetrate and move inward to address those other areas. That's really important to know. In addition to that, you know, the product can be used very, very openly and across the board for so many types of people. We're lucky.
And Melissa, how many times or how often, what's recommended for frequency of using that mask?
The mask, it really depends on the skin type. So you would use your same recommendations. If someone has a more oily or acne-prone skin, they could use every other day, 3 times a week until the condition starts to clear up. A normal skin would probably use it only once or twice a week. In terms of the modern person, they're probably only able to make time to do a mask once a week, and that's okay. And that's pretty much it. Once a week is ideal, up to 3 times a week for people who are trying to really address something that they want to clear up.
What would you say is the hero product from the range?
Serum. Hands down, the serum. I've always been a fan of the serum from the original line that launched in the US because of the dragon's blood fruit. Everybody's excited about the new ingredients. Our previous serum already had a very high level of active ingredients and a very high level of CBD, and when it comes to skincare, but the addition of the dragon's blood fruit, which is a very premium ingredient, lines that are in very upscale, Peter Thomas Roth, for example, and those types of brands have used dragon's blood fruit for, its anti-aging properties. Now we have a peptide. Now we have the acetyl hexapeptide 8 that's been added to give it even more anti-aging power without irritating. So the best thing about this serum for me is that it works. Natural skincare does not always work, as you know. It may not do harm, but it doesn't do anything that you can see. And so that's the difference here when you have this beautiful hemp plant and all of the amazing attributes of it that we don't even know about to this day. We know some of them, but we don't even know the power of every single element that's in the plant. Plus you add ancient Bibong herbs, and then we get these other ingredients. It's just beautiful. It's very hard to find this unique combination. And we're lucky that our hemp has an affinity with the Bibong herbs. They have to be able to live together and help each other, thrive in the skin. And they do work together very well in tandem. Dr. Kim tested her family's lineage formula with our product first to make sure that it would work and that the two would like each other, so to speak. And they did. And that's why this came to be. The addition of the other ingredients just adds more. I've got my little sheet here, and I love this. If you have this from the kit, I love these little information cards for people. They're so simple, and they just remind us of what's going on here. But very powerful, that serum. The moisturizer, too, with the addition of vitamin C ester, is really a great enhancement to the moisturizer from our previous formula. So it's nice that this is what you guys know from the start, and you have the best formula. I mean, we've been playing around with the formula for 5 years, and this is the end of the fruits of those labors, these perfectly balanced Bibong formulas. Nice. What else is on your mind, you guys?
Melissa, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Is there anything I missed, Valerie, that you thought that they needed to know?
Based on what you just shared, I don't think so. I think Bridget, she's been is on, and I know Eleni will hear the recording and some others. So if there's any specific questions, they can go ahead and shoot us an email or a message, and we can get the answers for them. And that was just fantastic. And I do believe Dr. Kim will be doing a webinar for the European group, just like part of their offering, like she does for us, a month or so. So guys, be on the lookout. I heard Ali Bukatam mention that Dr. Kim will be a guest speaker on their webinar series that they do in Europe. So stay tuned for that. And
question, Val.
Yes,
Valerie, it's Meredith. Hi, how are you?
good, Meredith.
Hi.
Hi, Melissa. So I'm sitting here. Hi, I'm sitting here with my new brand ambassador, who is not really familiar with skin lines at all. And I'm wondering if you could give us some bullet points for those of us who are not in the field that can go out and sell this, because I actually am sitting here for this Zoom call with my mask on and enjoying every second of it. And I love this new line, but I want to be able to bring it into my conversation when talking about CBD in general. So could you give us a little love on that?
Of course, of course. You know, all of the science and all of the skin physiology and all of the ingredients that we just spoke about and the procedures done in spas are one thing. But when you're already somebody who's interested in getting CBD and hemp in your life, nutritionally, and to balance your body to experience a new level of wellness, it's interesting when people start taking a supplement first internally, and then we say you need it for your skin too. Well, why is that? Well, there's this whole approach that I learned when Valerie and I first met Dr. Kim when we first joined, and we learned about this whole yin and yang 360-degree approach to feeding your endocannabinoid system, feeding your body, feeding every organ. If you are taking hemp internally, beautiful, right? Most of that is being used for your internal organs because they so need it, right? There's so much imbalance in our bodies and so much inflammation to correct. So you have to put it on topically with the salve, with the Cannabis Beauty Defined. And what happens physiologically, there's my big college word for the day, is the two shall meet in the middle. Apply it to your skin, take it in your mouth, eat it, and the two meet in the middle to have this perfectly balanced body functioning in all ways. So your skin is an extension of the work you're doing inside. If you're taking pure gold liquid or whatever your supplement is, depending on where you live in the world, and you're feeding your body, you have to feed your skin too. Your skin's probably getting a little bit of that from the inside, but let's face it, it may not make it all the way there because of the work that it's doing. It's the same thing when you eat hemp hearts and you're taking omegas and you're eating nutritionally. Your body is taking as much of that as possible in the gut and in the brain and in all of the internal organs. So you have to feed the skin from the outside. That's the case for the skincare. It's not about beauty. It's not about just being pretty. It is, right? Because our skin is glowing and it looks beautiful when we use the skincare. And people go, what are you doing to your skin? You're not even wearing makeup and you look fantastic. What's going on? Your skin's so radiant. You look 10 years younger, whatever they say. Well, that's because you're feeding your skin. It's glowing from within is really what you're encouraging by the internal supplementation and the external application. So that's always what I say. It's like, yes, look good, but feel good inside and, you know, glow from within. You won't know what that's like unless you do this.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way that I talk about it.
That's perfect. And you know, she's sitting here and she made a little bit of a joke saying, so it's kind of like Botox, and but obviously not really. But could you say anti-aging? I mean, I always say that the Defined line was anti-inflammatory, that we have receptor sites on the base of all the hair follicles. I mean, those are things you taught me in Ohio before you even knew I was a fan.
Yes, I remember.
So anti-aging, anti-inflammatory, like for those who aren't going to completely buy into the whole homeostasis inside and out, which makes
absolutely. Yes, you can use generic skincare language to explain the activity of these products. Anti-inflammatory may be new to a lot of people, but you know, if you have the discussion that inflammation is the root of all evil in our bodies, you know, in the skincare industry, we also talk about anti-glycation. So that's my next thing I want to discover, because glycation from a sugar buildup in the body and hence the skin creates a lot of the breakages of collagen and elastin. So we need to also delve into that territory, but it's all inflammation. So yes, and you can say anti-aging, you can say it prevents, it corrects. So it is preventive and corrective depending on the age of the person that you're speaking to.
Perfection. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I promise you guys, I will look into glycation and get back to you. It's been something I've wanted to research in regards to this line. Hi, puppy. I see a dog. Aw, hi. Dogs need it too. Put that salve on those little paws. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your time. I hope this was helpful for everyone.
Thank you, Melissa. That was fantastic. We'll make sure we get this up, and I appreciate you very much, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful day, wonderful evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cheers.
Bye.